always thought family was supposed to be the one thing you could count on. Turns out I was just the placeholder. The bench warmer. The invisible sibling standing just off stage while the golden child shined under a spotlight I helped build. Let me back up. My name is Lisa, I'm 29, and according to my mother, I'm a little too independent for my own good. Translation. I didn't marry a dentist at 25. I didn't gush over Pinterest wedding boards. I didn't let my parents run my life. But my brother Mark. He followed the script to the letter. Valedictorian. Law degree. Married a woman named Tiffany with an Instagram full of latte art and fake candid laughter. I never disliked Tiffany. I just never existed in her world. And that became painfully obvious the day I received their wedding invitation. Or rather, the announcement. It wasn't a real invitation. No RSVP card. No meal choice. No +1. Just a glossy photo of them nose to nose under a palm tree with the words, "We're getting married. See you there." Slapped across it in gold. That should have been my first red flag. But like the idiot optimist I sometimes pretend to be, I texted Mark. Got the announcement. Do I need to RSVP? He replied 6 hours later. Oh, you're totally welcome to come, Lise. Just let Mom know. Love you. Totally welcome. As in, optional. Still, I swallowed the insult, bought a simple cocktail dress, and took the weekend off work. I even picked out a thoughtful gift from their registry. Big mistake. The wedding was at this over-the-top vineyard 2 hours out of town. The kind of place where even the dirt had wine notes. When I pulled up, a valet blinked at my 10-year-old hatchback like it was leaking disease. Name? He asked, pen hovering over his clipboard. Lisa. Lisa Harper. His eyes scanned the list. Left, right. Then he forced a tight smile and said, "Oh, you're not on the guest list. But there's a viewing area outside. Near the fountain." Viewing area. Was I attending a wedding or a zoo exhibit? Before I could ask, he waved vaguely toward a gravel path and someone behind me honked impatiently. I should have left right then. But curiosity, mixed with a dose of masochism, dragged me forward. The so-called viewing area turned out to be a row of wrought iron chairs placed just outside the garden ceremony setup. Literally behind a hedge. I could hear the vows, but I couldn't see anything unless I craned my neck like a periscope. And guess who else was in the viewing area? 2 toddlers with sticky hands, a guy in a t-shirt that read, "Groom's cousin, I guess," and an elderly woman who spent the whole ceremony asking if I worked there. Lovely. I sat, hands folded on my lap, fuming silently while Mark and Tiffany exchanged designer vows under twinkling string lights. I wasn't just excluded. I was deliberately erased. After the ceremony, I tried to enter the reception tent. That's when a woman with a clipboard and a headset stopped me. "I'm sorry," she said briskly, glancing at her tablet. "Are you staff or vendor?" "No," I said slowly. "I'm family. Sister of the groom." She blinked at me. "Oh, you're that Lisa." That Lisa. The words hit like ice water. Before I could respond, she waved over a waiter. "Please escort her to the garden lounge. They've set up overflow seating." Overflow. Like I was a mistake on a spreadsheet. The lounge was a sad setup of patio furniture and champagne flutes with bees drowning in them. A few distant cousins were there too, looking equally confused. I was done pretending this wasn't personal. But I wasn't going to make a scene. Not yet. I had something better in mind. Something long overdue. Because you see, Tiffany may have spent months perfecting this wedding down to the blush-colored napkins, but she made one fatal mistake. She hired my company. No, not directly. That would have required acknowledging me. But she'd gone through a fancy event planning agency downtown, the same one that had recently signed a contract with a boutique hospitality group I managed. A partnership I happened to oversee. Tiffany didn't know that. But the planner, the one with the clipboard, she knew exactly who I was the moment I gave her my full name. And from the way her eyes darted around after saying that Lisa, I could tell she'd realized the mistake. I didn't say a word. Just gave her a cool smile and walked to the lounge. By the time dinner started, I was sitting alone, poking at a cheese cube, wondering how long I had to endure this before I could ghost out and pretend I was never there. That's when she came back. The wedding planner. Clipboard clutched tight. Eyes wide. She approached like someone walking into a crime scene. "Lisa," she said softly, "could I speak with you for a moment?" I stood slowly. "Sure. What's up?" She lowered her voice. "There's been a complication." I raised an eyebrow. "We've had a small issue with the dinner service. It appears the wine shipment was misallocated. The reserved bottles for the couple's table didn't arrive. But I was told you might have access to alternate sourcing." There it was. See, the vineyard may have hosted the event. But the premium wine, the stuff on the menu, that came from my distribution channels. And if they wanted access, they needed my approval. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was essential. I let the silence hang before I spoke. "Of course," I said sweetly. "I'd be happy to help." Her shoulders relaxed. Relief washed over her face. "But under one condition," I added, letting my voice drop just enough. He tensed again. "I want a seat. At the real table. Not in the garden. Not behind a hedge. I want to sit with my family." She hesitated. "That may be difficult." The seating charts locked. "Tiffany. Tell Tiffany it's either that, or the bride drinks boxed wine tonight." She blinked. Smiled. "Your call." She left, heels clicking on the stone path. I went back to my bee-infested champagne, heart pounding, but with a grin curling at the edge of my mouth. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. They wanted to pretend I didn't belong. They were about to find out exactly how wrong they were. And by the end of that night, every single guest at that wedding would know my name. Not because I crashed the party, but because they needed me there. And trust me, revenge is a dish best served with vintage Merlot. Let me tell you something about wedding planners. They're magicians. They conjure illusions. Smooth chaos into elegance. Make disasters disappear with a flick of a clipboard. But even magicians panic when the wine doesn't show up. I sat back on the wrought iron chair, sipping what remained of my sad champagne, watching the planner scurry back toward the tent like her heels were on fire. She was about to go toe-to-toe with Tiffany. And that, my dear listener, was a show I desperately wanted front-row seats to. A few minutes later she returned. This time, flanked by a man in a perfectly tailored navy suit. I recognized him immediately. Travis, the head of my client relations department. And the only reason this wedding had premium access to our limited edition Vineyard Reserve. He gave me a half-smirk, the kind he used in boardrooms when someone realized a deal was slipping through their fingers. "Lisa," he said smoothly. "Seems there's been some confusion." "Oh," I said, rising slowly, brushing imaginary lint off my dress. "What kind?" Travis looked at the planner, then back to me. "Apparently, the bride was unaware of your involvement in tonight's supply chain." Gave him a look. "Involvement? Try control." The planner cleared her throat. "Tiffany's surprised, but very open to adjusting the seating arrangement." "Bet she was." I nodded once, slow and deliberate. "Then let's not keep her waiting." I followed them toward the main tent, past the lantern-lit hedges and fountain, into the belly of the wedding beast. The tent was breathtaking. Draped in white silk, twinkling lights overhead, tables adorned with eucalyptus runners and candles that smelled like ambition and vanilla. People turned as we entered. I scanned me, hesitating. Recognition dawning. Not who is that? But why is she here now? We stopped at the head table. Tiffany stood like a porcelain figurine with a fake smile glued to her face. Her eyes met mine. Dark, cold, dressed in mascara and condescension. "Lisa," she said, voice sugary enough to rot teeth. "We didn't expect you in the tent." I returned her smile. "Oh, I'm full of surprises." Mark looked between us, visibly uncomfortable. But he deserved worse. I didn't wait for permission. I turned to the planner. Where's my seat? They'd shuffled someone, Tiffany's third cousin maybe, to the end of another table. And just like that I had a chair. Real silverware. A linen napkin. My name on a place card. Felt like a coronation. As the courses arrived, I watched people try to recalibrate. Suddenly, I wasn't the sibling they ignored in the group chat. I wasn't the family afterthought in clearance heels. I was the reason their $1.28 plate duck confit came paired with wine that didn't taste like disappointment. And they knew it. Halfway through the entree, Tiffany leaned toward me. You could have told us, she whispered, the smile never leaving her lips. Tell you what? I asked innocently. That you're involved with the supplier. That you were essential. He offered. Integral. Indispensable. She stiffened. I took a sip of the Cabernet. You know, I wasn't even on the guest list. I had to watch the ceremony through a hedge. Tiffany blinked like I'd spoken in Morse code. But it's fine, I continued, swirling the wine. I love being treated like furniture. It's humbling. She opened her mouth to reply, but the DJ tapped the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the toasts. Mark stood, flustered but smiling. Let's start with my beautiful bride's maid of honor. A tall brunette in chiffon rose and performed a speech full of inside jokes, bad poetry, and references to how Tiffany was basically a goddess sent from the heavens. Applause. Forced laughter. Then Mark's best man stood, made some questionable jokes about law school and whiskey, and it was over. The mic returned to the DJ's stand. And that should have been it. Except the planner whispered something in his ear. He nodded. Before we continue, he said, I've just been informed there's one more person who'd like to say a few words. Please welcome Lisa Harper. The entire tent froze. Forks paused. Glasses suspended mid-air. Tiffany's jaw actually dropped. I rose slowly, picked up my glass, walked to the front, heels clicking across the hardwood floor like punctuation. I took the mic, turned to face them. All of them. Smiling politely. I'll keep this short. I wasn't planning on giving a speech tonight. Mostly because I didn't know I was actually invited. A few scattered laughs. Nervous. Confused. But I'm here. And since I've now been upgraded from overflow seating to this lovely tent, I figured why not say a few words. Pause. Let them squirm. Mark, Tiffany. You two are something. Truly. I've watched you both build a relationship out of spreadsheets and social media filters. It's inspiring. Cough. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Tiffany's smile vanished like a magic trick. But I do wish you'd remembered I exist. That I've always existed. As Mark's sister. As someone who supported him through everything. Even when our parents gave you everything and handed me excuses. Now it was dead silent. But the beautiful part of being forgotten, I said, raising my glass, is that eventually you learn to stop asking for a seat and start building your own table. Took a sip. And sometimes you end up owning the vineyard. You could hear the collective what? The DJ blinked. Mark's eyes went wide. And Tiffany. She looked like someone had slapped her with a diamond-encrusted napkin. I handed the mic back to the DJ and returned to my seat. Travis caught my eye and gave me the tiniest nod of approval. And just like that, the power shifted. I wasn't just allowed into the tent. Owned it. Because the wine they toasted with. The deals that made it possible. The network Tiffany bragged about to her influencer friends. It all looped back to me. And I wasn't done yet. No. Because the final course of this twisted little dinner party was still coming. If you've ever dreamed of revenge, let me tell you, nothing tastes quite as delicious as the silence that follows a perfectly delivered mic drop. I sat back down at that white linen-covered table and calmly folded my napkin across my lap. Like I hadn't just set the entire reception tent on fire with one toast. Tiffany didn't say a word. Mark avoided looking in my direction like I was Medusa wearing nude lipstick. And the rest of the guests. Oh, they stared. Some with amusement, others with horror, and a handful with the subtle nods of people who'd been underestimated once too often. But I wasn't finished. See, while the guests thought the evening was winding down, first dances, cake cutting, fake laughter, I had one final gift. Something custom. I waited until the lights dimmed and the DJ announced the bride and groom's first dance. Cue the swooning music. Cue the flashbulbs. Cue Tiffany pretending to cry because it's just all so beautiful. She had no idea. Because while she twirled in her glittering designer gown under a chandelier made of rented crystals, the wedding planner slipped me a tiny USB drive. Silent. Smooth. Like a spy sliding a weapon across a poker table. I nodded, stood up quietly, and made my way to the media table. There was a screen set up behind the dance floor, meant for a slideshow of childhood photos, I assume. A sappy little montage of Mark with a pudding cup and Tiffany in a tutu. But that's not what played. Instead, the screen blinked, then faded into black. And then came the audio. A recording. Tiffany's voice. I mean, Mark's sister is sweet, I guess, but she's not people like us, you know? She gives girl who handles customer service energy. Not Saturday night in St. Tropez. I just hope she knows not to wear something off the rack. Few chuckles. Then a reply. One of her bridesmaids. Is she even invited to the real dinner? I thought your mom was trying to seat her near the bar. Like outside. Tiffany again. Laughing. Perfect. Maybe we can use her chair for the gift table. Cue the gasp. The audio stopped. The screen blinked black again. Then silence. Tiffany froze mid-dance. Someone dropped a fork. Mark stared at the screen like it had betrayed him personally. And the room turned. Not violently. Not loudly. Just a slow, collective shift. Whispers. Few people grabbing their phones. One woman actually stood up and walked out. Tiffany looked around in disbelief. Her arms still halfway in the air from the final twirl of their song. Who did that? She hissed. The planner looked at me. I just smiled. Oh, don't look so shocked, I said, rising from my seat. You invited me. Mark finally found his voice. Lisa. What the hell was that? Shrug. Just a little preview of what you get when you treat your sister like hotel luggage. He blinked. You recorded her. No, I said calmly. But when your bride vents to the event team with her mic still hot, things tend to end up in the cloud. Tiffany stormed over. You ruined my wedding. I tilted my head. Sweetheart, if your wedding can be ruined by your own words, maybe you should think about who you really are when no one's watching. More whispers. One of the groomsmen started slow clapping, then stopped, realizing this wasn't a movie. I took a slow step forward. My voice dropped. You wanted me out of the frame. You thought you could crop me out of the family like a bad haircut. But here's the thing, Tiffany, without me, none of this works. I motioned around the tent. The wine. The vendor discount. The media team. The gift bags. Every thread of this little designer fantasy. It was stitched by hands you never bothered to look at. He turned to Mark. Say something. Make her leave. He looked between us, finally realizing the image was cracking and the PR-perfect evening was bleeding all over his rented dance floor. Lisa, he said quietly, maybe you should go. I gave a sad little laugh. Of course I should. I always do, don't I? After the mess is cleaned up. After the party's over. Then I turned to the planner and said, send the final invoice to her. Tiffany blinked. What invoice? Oh, the one I upgraded personally. The one that includes the premium wine you insisted on. The photographer overtime. The backup generators for the sound system. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. You said we had a discount. We did, I said. But it expired the moment I was told to sit behind a hedge. I turned to the guests. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. The cake is lemon. The gossip is fresh. And with that I walked out. No screaming. No storming. Just a calm, calculated exit. The kind you make when you know you've already won. Outside, the night air felt like freedom. Oh, Clean. I took off my heels and walked barefoot to my car, humming a song I couldn't name but somehow knew by heart. Revenge doesn't always need fire. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's a USB drive. And sometimes it's just finally being seen. The next morning my phone blew up. Cousins. Distant aunts. Even a few guests I didn't know well. One message stood out though. It was from the photographer. "Hey Lisa. I just wanted to say thanks. That was the most real moment I've ever seen at a wedding. I posted a few shots of you on my page. They're kind of blowing up." Clicked the link. There I was, walking across the dance floor, heels in hand, head high. Backlit by twinkling lights and 20 stunned guests. Caption. Every wedding has a story. Sometimes the best one isn't between the couple. The likes were in the thousands. Apparently I wasn't invisible anymore. And Tiffany. Well, she'll have her wedding. The video, the photos, the tears. But the one thing she can't edit out. Me. Because no matter how hard they tried to push me outside the frame, I took the whole damn spotlight. And I didn't even need a bouquet.